Now, Gavin Park is Manager of Forensics at FMG Engineering here in South Australia. He joins us now. Gavin, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Peter.
Manager of Forensics, that's a great title.
It sounds probably fancier than it is.
Is that right? All right. So, in the what we're talking about here is the problems that excess water around your home can cause in winter, and sort of particularly focusing on things within the home.
Well, not specifically. Water and excess water can cause a lot of damage to properties. Adelaide, the majority of Adelaide is found on reactive soils, and that reactive soil is susceptible to moisture changes. And what happens when the moisture increases, the soils tend to swell. As the soils dry out, conversely they shrink. Water that is long-standing and is allowed to sit there can cause problems, many problems actually. What tends to happen is that the water moisture content increases quickly, and tree roots will tend to look for that.
To follow it, right, yep.
Long-term water damage can lead to swell, and because we've got cohesive soils, it takes quite a long time for that water to migrate into the soils and cause that swelling. But if it isn't managed properly, it can lead to distress in the home.
So what we're talking generally is that slow, almost insidious build-up of water in different areas, rather than, if it was a flood and it's the damage caused by a torrent of water rushing through your living room. So,
well, the floods tend to lead to other problems. Damp, and
like
from damp comes
remaining.
mould.
Right.
And mould is a significant problem that is related to flood.
How, if it's not a flood situation, if it's a slower sort of building up problem, how do you identify that there might be a problem with dampness somewhere around the exterior or the interior of your home? Are there signs that you can pick it up early?
The general air signs, usually the first order, certainly with mould, you'll get a damp, musty smell, an earthy kind of smell. And if you notice that, you do tend to get a lot of that in the more humid places in the house, the showers, the laundries, etc., etc.
And rooms adjacent to those,
if they're not sealed properly, and that tends to seep through the tiling if there's any leaks in there, and will develop damp and mould, and it can be hazardous to health.
So would there be visible signs as well in the early stages?
Yeah, what you tend to see you'd see water staining, signs of dampness, discoloration on the surfaces, paint bubbling, wallpaper peeling, things like that. With mould, you tend to see small, dark spots that tend to cluster, and that would just get worse as time goes on if it's not dealt with quickly.
So what are the serious side effects of not doing? I guess, if there's a major water leak in there, that the timber in the wall is going to swell or things like that, but there are, is that the key problem, or are there other problems that can arise from dampness inside?
Well, yeah, there's... from dampness, you can also, obviously, mould is really the worst byproduct of damp. But obviously, if it's allowed to continue, and certainly with a water leak, if you've got a water leak in the bathroom, if you've got a water leak from any of the mains water pipes, it can lead to decay of the timber. If it's a structural timber, supporting timber, that can obviously lead to issues. Any leaks in the roof that are ongoing, that can lead to other issues such as additional weight due to wet insulation, and can lead to sealing defects and problems.
Would you notice problems outside the home of water build-up or damp build-up?
You would. There's a number of different things that can happen, obviously, outside the home. What I would recommend is that you maintain your home to prevent all that. And initially what you should be doing is looking at your downspouts, your gutters, make sure they're all there clean, make sure that everything discharges away from the property. Any perimeter paving around the property, make sure there's a fall away from the house to make sure that none of the water can pond and there's no build-up of water there. But in older homes, what that can lead to, older homes that haven't got damp-proof courses like the modern-day homes have, what you can get is rising damp. And the onset of that could be due to excess water outside. And that's the same thing, it'll rise up the wall and it'll affect the internal surfaces, the internal finishes. And also can lead to decay in the timber floors.
Okay. Is that, can you, is rising, is that, can you see that in sort of like a salt formation outside of sort of on brickwork? Is that what rising dam, or is it an indication of rising dam?
It can do, because what happens is that saline soils obviously have got salt in there. What happens when the water starts to rise up the walls? The water takes the salt with it.
Yeah.
What actually happens then is that the salt crystals are in the water and in the masonry. As it dries, the water evaporates and they leave the salt crystals behind.
Yeah.
Once the water affects it again and the crystals become wet, they expand, which leads to spalling and can lead to external damage.
Right.
And if not treated, can be quite severe.
Do people tend to neglect things like this around the house? I guess,
Yes.
winter particularly, because, it's cold and wet, I'm not going to go and, do any jobs like that. But we should overcome that and deal with it, obviously.
And you do, and it really is part of a maintenance regime that you should have on your property, and you should really be doing it in the summer months before the winter comes.
Yeah, yeah.
And there are a number of ways you can mitigate the risks.
Yeah. Would things be as noticeable in summer? Would, if it's warmer weather, would you notice that damp smell because it may dry out a bit? Is it harder to detect in warmer weather?
It would, and it certainly due to stormwater and rainfall, it tends to dry up pretty quickly. You wouldn't notice. There would be in some severe cases there would be a damp odour that's left behind, but that's usually it's actually drying out, and it's not a real issue if you allow it to dry out very quickly.
Yeah.
But no, you wouldn't. You wouldn't see. You'd certainly see the signs in winter, and if there's any heavy rainfall.
Do people tend to put it in the too hard basket that, I don't want to find this, it could be expensive to rectify? Is that, too hard basket kind of scenario?
I don't know if it's that. I think it is just literally that, they never get time to go outside and have a good look round, and really they should be doing.
Should be doing it.
That's my advice.
Good advice there. Gavin, appreciate your time and your advice this afternoon.
No problem at all, Peter. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Gavin Park, Manager of Forensics at FMG Engineering.